The law of karma, the justice of God in the tapestry of human life. Forward. The invisible threads of justice. There runs through all creation a single, unbreakable law, the law of divine justice. It binds the smallest atom to the greatest galaxy, the poorest man to the mightiest king, and the most hidden thought to the outermost act. It is silent, yet living. Invisible, yet unfailing. Its movement is the pulse of God's will through all that exists. This law men have called karma, a word ancient and veiled, yet radiant with truth when understood. It is the eternal response to every vibration sent forth by human will. It neither forgets nor forgives, yet it does not punish. It teaches, it corrects, it purifies. In the confusion of human history, where wars, injustice, and oppression seem to reign, this law stands as the unseen hand restoring order. It is the invisible balance that ensures that nothing remains unresolved, that every cause bears its own fruit, and that every soul learns through its own harvest. The ignorant call it fate, thinking they are victims of chance. The rebellious call it cruelty, believing God to be unjust. But those who awaken through pain, humility, and recognition come to see in it the most beautiful expression of divine love, a law that leads each being, through correction, back to the light. This book is not a theory. It is a revelation, a lamp held high above the confusion of human explanations. It shines the light of the Grail message upon the mystery of karma, unveiling its truth as the living justice of God. Through it, every honest heart may find peace in understanding and freedom in obedience. Introduction. The mystery of human destiny, from chance to law. Man has long looked upon the changing scenes of life with wonder and fear. Birth and death, joy and sorrow, fortune and ruin, these have seemed to him the play of blind chance or the arbitrary favor of unseen powers. He prays for luck, fears misfortune, and despairs when injustice appears to triumph. In his blindness, he fails to see that behind every appearance lies a cause, a thought once sown, an act once performed, a will once released into the web of life. What men call destiny is but the return of their own past, ripened through time. Nothing comes by accident, nothing is without purpose. The life of man is a field in which he himself has scattered seeds through countless ages. Each seed bears fruit in its season, some sweet, some bitter, according to its kind. And when he reaps pain, it is not the wrath of God but the reflection of his own former deeds, calling him to recognition and renewal. In the light of the Grail message, the veil of mystery is lifted. What men call fate is seen to be the just working of the law of reciprocal action, the law of return, through which the divine will maintains harmony in all creation. Through this law, the seeming chaos of life becomes order. Through it, injustice is revealed as correction. Through it, sorrow is revealed as a mercy that awakens the slumbering spirit. To understand karma, therefore, is to understand oneself, one's past, one's present, and one's future. It is to behold life as a living classroom in which the soul learns to align its will with the will of God. For only when man knows that every moment is the harvest of yesterday and the seed of tomorrow does he begin to live consciously, in reverence and gratitude for the eternal justice that governs all things. Chapter 1. The Law of Reciprocal Action, the Seed and the Harvest. Every movement in creation begins with an act of will. Thought, word, and deed are all seeds cast forth into the soil of existence. Each bears fruit according to its kind, and none can escape its own harvest. This is the law of reciprocal action, the living mechanism of divine justice. It ensures that everything man sends forth must return to him, not as reward or punishment, but as the natural consequence of his own volition. When a man speaks kindness, he sends out a vibration that carries peace, and peace returns to him multiplied. When he speaks falsehood or harm, he sends forth darkness, and darkness returns to him in form and circumstance. The law is precise, impartial, and unalterable. In nature, we see this mirrored everywhere. The seed sown in the ground grows after its kind, wheat from wheat, thorn from thorn. Likewise, the soul reaps exactly what it has sown, joy from love, pain from selfishness, confusion from deceit. Thus, Every life is self-woven. What a man experiences today is the visible result of seeds sown in past moments, past years, or past lives. There is no injustice in this, only clarity, though men perceive it as mystery because they have forgotten the sowing. This law extends beyond individuals to families, nations, and races. Peoples who sow greed, war, and domination will one day reap the same through other hands, until they learn harmony and righteousness. So, the law educates mankind collectively, balancing every wrong through its corresponding effect. But within this justice lies grace. Every recognition, every repentance, every sincere effort toward good begins a new sowing, a new seed that will ripen in light. Therefore, karma is not imprisonment, it is liberation through enlightenment. He who understands this law ceases to blame others, fate, or even God. He begins instead to examine his own inner life, knowing that the outer world is but the reflection of his inner state. And thus, he becomes master of his destiny, not by power, but by purity. Chapter 2. The Law of Gravity and Attraction, the Drawing of Like to Like. In the vast order of creation, everything moves and gathers according to its nature. This is the law of spiritual gravity, the law by which like attracts like, and unlike repels. It is the same law that shapes the stars, governs the elements, and directs the journeys of souls through the planes of existence. Wherever a soul stands in its vibration, whether of light or darkness, purity or impurity, it attracts to itself all that is of similar kind. Thoughts of hatred attract hateful influences. Feelings of love draw luminous companions. Nations steeped in greed attract conflict, while those striving toward peace attract blessings of harmony. Through this law, creation itself performs judgment, silently, unfailingly, without the need for external decrees. Every being is drawn to its rightful sphere by its own inner weight. The light rises, the heavy sinks. The pure ascend, the impure descend. This movement is not punishment, but the fulfillment of order. It is in this way that human relationships, communities, and events are formed. People are born among those with whom they share past affinities or karmic debts. Groups of similar nature find each other, to learn, balance, or purify together. There is no coincidence in who meets whom, who serves, or who opposes, all are drawn by the threads of their own will. Thus, the law of gravity and attraction reveals that karma is not isolated, it is collective, interwoven. The oppressor meets the oppressed again, the deceiver the deceived, until both learn truth and compassion. History is the mirror of this great interplay, the dance of like with like, the sorting of light and darkness. And when the human spirit awakens, recognizing the justice of this law, it begins to choose differently. It no longer blames fate for the company it keeps or the trials it endures. It purifies itself, and thereby rises into new circles of harmony, peace, and light. In this rising, salvation unfolds. For salvation is not escape from law but harmony with it, when man becomes inwardly luminous enough to dwell only among the luminous. Chapter 3. The Weaving of Fate, the Threads of Cause and Effect. Every human life is a tapestry, not woven by chance or the caprice of gods, but by the unbroken law of cause and effect. Each thought, word, and deed sends out threads of energy into the fabric of creation. These threads intertwine with others, forming patterns that return to their source in time, often unrecognized but never lost. What men call fate is the visible pattern of their own past will, the harvest of causes they themselves have set in motion. No hand but their own has woven the web that surrounds them. The Grail message reveals that every action, even the smallest, creates a vibration in the spiritual world. These vibrations are living forms, seeds of energy that continue to grow and attract similar vibrations until they mature into effects that touch the originator again. This return may occur in hours, years, or centuries, for time in creation is but the ripening ground of the spirit's sowing. Thus, joy and sorrow, success and failure, companionship and loneliness, all are woven outcomes of threads we once spun. The just and the unjust alike are but the reflections of what has long been sown. There is no injustice in the universe. The only tragedy is that man, blind to the weaving, keeps adding darker threads to his own pattern through ignorance, selfishness, and indulgence. Yet even in this, mercy shines. Every painful experience is an opportunity to recognize the cause and change the pattern. Each sorrow bears within it the call to awaken, to purify one's will, and to begin weaving consciously in the light. Man must understand that his fate is not an external decree. It is self-made, living proof of the perfection of divine justice. The knowledge of this liberates him from fear and superstition, transforming him from a helpless sufferer into a responsible creator within the laws of God. Fate is not bondage, it is education. Each thread teaches through its effect until the soul learns to weave only with threads of truth, love, and purity. Then the fabric of his destiny shines with light and harmony, and the will of God becomes his own will in joyful unity. Chapter 4. Karma and Religion, From Doctrine to Living Law. Throughout history, religions have sought to explain the justice of life and the mystery of suffering. Some have spoken of original sin, others of divine punishment or reward. Some have emphasized grace, others penance or sacrifice. Yet beneath all these doctrines lies one living truth, the working of the law of reciprocal action, known to the wise as karma. True religion was never meant to be dogma or speculation. It was meant to awaken the human spirit to the reality of divine laws, to guide it into harmony with them, and thus to bring peace. When religion became a matter of belief instead of recognition, men lost the living connection to these laws. They began to imagine an arbitrary God, one who blesses some and curses others without cause. But the Grail message restores clarity. God does not personally intervene in human destinies. His will works through laws that are perfect, self-acting, and incorruptible. These laws carry justice and mercy alike, without partiality, without delay. When religion teaches of forgiveness, it must be understood rightly. Forgiveness is not the cancellation of cause and effect. It is the inner transformation that prevents new wrong-sowings. The old must still bear fruit, but the purified spirit, now aligned with light, receives strength to bear it gladly and learn through it. Thus, grace works within the law, not against it. All religious prophecies, rituals, and commandments only have meaning when they guide man to live in harmony with these laws. Prayer, fasting, charity, and sacrifice are empty if they do not change the vibration of the inner will. For it is the inner will that sows and reaps. Therefore, karma is not opposed to religion, it is its foundation. It is the living law that gives religion its reality. When this truth is rediscovered, faith will no longer rest upon fear or tradition, but upon knowledge, reverence, and joyful cooperation with the eternal will of God. Chapter 5. The Error of Fatalism. Karma is not destiny. Many, when they first encounter the law of karma, fall into the grave error of fatalism. They imagine themselves prisoners of their past, unable to escape the weight of former deeds, condemned to suffer whatever comes. This misunderstanding is a chain forged by ignorance, not truth. Karma is not destiny in the fatalistic sense. It is the working of cause and effect, but the will of man remains free at every moment to change the direction of the flow. Though the harvest must come, new sowing can begin instantly. A man may not stop the ripening of the old seed, but he can plant new ones that will bear fruit in light instead of darkness. In this lies the mystery of free will, the greatest gift of God to man. Free will allows him to break the circle of repetition, to rise from the weight of his own past through recognition and conscious cooperation with divine law. Fatalism breeds despair, passivity, and resignation. But recognition of karma brings courage, humility, and strength. The one lies in darkness, the other in light. When a man understands karma, he no longer says, "I must suffer because it is my fate." He says instead, "I will use this suffering to learn and to purify." And with this change of inner attitude, the vibration of his will changes, attracting new conditions and drawing him upward toward deliverance. The law is just, but it is also dynamic. It responds instantly to the living will. The moment man decides for the good, truly, with all his being, the balance begins to shift. The chains that bound him begin to loosen, and he experiences inward peace even amid outer trials. Therefore, karma is never a curse. It is the path of restoration. Every man who truly seeks light may at any time begin a new life, for the law, though strict, is not cruel. It is the form of divine love working through justice. Chapter 6. The misuse of the law, excuses for evil and indulgence. Wherever truth shines, the shadow seeks to twist it. So has the law of karma often been distorted, turned from a key of liberation into an excuse for evil, indulgence, and indifference. Some say, why help the suffering, if their pain is karma? Others justify wrongdoing by saying, it is their destiny to be harmed, and my destiny to do the harming. Still others excuse their weakness, vice, or cruelty, claiming, it is my karma, I cannot help it. These are lies born of self-deception. Such misuse of the law only deepens guilt and multiplies the burden of retribution. The Grail message makes it clear. The knowledge of a law does not absolve responsibility, it increases it. He who knows the truth and acts against it reaps a heavier harvest. Karma does not cancel moral duty, it illuminates it. If a man is brought near another's suffering, it is his opportunity to serve, not to turn away. The law that led them together offers each a chance to balance and uplift. To deny compassion is to sow hardness of heart, which must return in kind. Neither does karma justify indulgence or moral decay. To say, I follow my desire because it is fated, is rebellion against the divine order. Desire becomes destiny only when man refuses to govern it. Freedom lies not in yielding to impulse, but in mastering it through the spirit awakened in the light of truth. Every misuse of this law turns it into a whip. But when rightly understood, it becomes a staff of guidance. The man who walks in harmony with it becomes humble, pure, and compassionate, never proud, indifferent, or self-excusing. Let each one, therefore, test his understanding. If it leads to indifference, it is false. If it leads to awakening, purification, and service, it is true. The genuine recognition of karma inspires action, love, and self-responsibility, the triune path that leads the human spirit back to God. Chapter 7. The Karma of Nations, Collective Harvests of Humanity. The law of karma does not operate only upon individuals, it extends its mighty influence over families, tribes, peoples, and nations. Every community is bound together by invisible threads of collective volition and shared responsibility. Just as individual thoughts and deeds weave the fabric of personal fate, so too do the united choices of a people weave the destiny of their nation. Every national fate, whether prosperity or calamity, peace or war, ascension or decline, arises as a lawful harvest of the collective seed once sown. The blessings of righteous rulers, industrious citizens, and faithful hearts draw streams of light into the nation's aura, lifting it into fruitfulness and stability. Conversely, pride, greed, oppression, and injustice call forth the darkness that dissolves nations from within. When a people forget divine laws and turn to self-worship, they cut off the living current of grace that sustains them. History bears witness. Egypt, Babylon, Greece, Rome, and even modern empires have risen and fallen in obedience to the same immutable principle. Their collective will, expressed through culture, politics, and religion, attracted to them corresponding consequences, either uplifting or destructive. Yet karma is never vengeance, it is rectification. Each downfall serves as a mirror, revealing what must be purified for rebirth. Nations too must repent and renew their spiritual bearings. Only by returning to truth, purity, and justice can the collective karma of a people be transmuted into light. What a nation sows in thought, speech, and action becomes the harvest of its children. Chapter 8. Slavery and Colonization, the Harvest of Pride and Possession. Here, the light of the Grail message illumines one of the darkest threads in human history, the age of slavery and colonization. Men wonder, how could divine justice allow such oppression? Did the oppressed deserve their chains? Were the conquerors truly instruments of God's will? In truth, the law of reciprocal action operates far above human emotion. Every soul, before incarnation, stands before its own sowing and must reap accordingly. Those who once used power to oppress others in previous lives are drawn, through the attraction of homogeneity, into conditions where they themselves taste the bitterness they once inflicted. Likewise, those who enslaved through deceit, pride, or exploitation must experience subjugation until humility and compassion awaken within them. The colonizers of past centuries, Europe over Africa, Asia, and the Americas, were moved by arrogance and lust for dominion. Yet behind their conquest stood the collective karma of the subdued peoples who, in earlier epochs, may have themselves abused spiritual or temporal power. The wheel of justice turns slowly but unfailingly. What one generation sows, another reaps, for the law binds both oppressor and oppressed in the web of retribution until both sides learn to walk in truth and mutual respect. Even now, in the modern world, the karmic aftershocks of colonization continue. Economic inequality, racial tension, and moral confusion are not random, but the harvest of unresolved spiritual debts. Only when both the descendants of conquerors and the conquered purify their hearts and forgive in light of truth can these karmic threads dissolve. Justice is not blind punishment but luminous balance. In it, the proud are humbled and the humble uplifted. Chapter 9. Religious Wars and Fanaticism, the Karma of the Misused Word of God. Of all human errors, none is graver than the misuse of the divine word. Throughout history, men have taken sacred truth and molded it into a weapon. They have fought, tortured, and slain in the name of God, yet it was not God's will they served, but their own hardened intellects and lust for dominance. The Crusades, the Inquisition, the burning of heretics, the violent spread of faiths across lands, all these acts stand as crimson stains upon the human spirit. Each deed done in the name of the Almighty without alignment to His will calls forth a mighty karmic recoil. The blood spilled in fanatic zeal darkens nations for centuries, attracting wars, divisions, and confusion among their descendants. Yet divine justice is not cruelty but purification. The spiritual blindness of religious conflict exposes humanity's greatest error, the belief that truth can be owned or defended by force. The living word, as taught in the Grail message, is not confined to doctrine, church, mosque, or temple. It is a vibration of light that can only be received through purity and humility. Where these are absent, the word becomes distorted and men reap suffering. In every age, messengers have come to recall mankind to inner truth, not dogma, but life in the laws of creation. Those who ignore this call create collective karma that leads to schisms, atheism, and the spiritual decay of entire civilizations. The misuse of the word builds altars of stone but destroys the temple of the spirit. Chapter 10. Civilization and Decline, the Rise and Fall of Nations in the Balance of Law. Civilizations are like living organisms. They are born, grow, flower, and decline according to the inner vibration of their collective soul. The law of spiritual gravity ensures that every civilization ascends or descends according to the purity of its inner life. When a people honor truth, justice, and service, they rise. Their culture, art, and governance reflect harmony with the divine order. But when intellect, materialism, and arrogance dethrone spirit, decay sets in. The light that once animated their greatness dims, and the forces of dissolution gather. Ancient Greece fell when wisdom became pride. Rome fell when power turned to decadence. Modern Europe declined when science dethroned faith and greed replaced reverence. These are not accidents but the visible outworking of inner law. The same applies today to nations whose civilization glitters outwardly but is hollow within, for no empire can stand where truth is mocked and justice ignored. However, decline is not the end, it is correction. The fall of one civilization prepares the soil for another that may rise closer to divine truth. Through the cleansing pain of karma, humanity is refined, the wheat is separated from the chaff. Those who understand the law need not despair at the chaos of the times. They see in every downfall the justice of purification, and in every collapse, the preparation for rebirth. Civilization without spirit is a tower of sand. The law of karma restores the foundation of light. Chapter 11. The Circle of Life, Birth, Death, and Rebirth. Humanity's greatest fear has always been death, and yet, death is only a doorway. It is not the end, but the turning of a wheel, the continuation of a journey through the perfect workings of divine law. The law of karma cannot be understood apart from the law of rebirth, for one is the cause, and the other is the stage upon which its effects unfold. Every birth on earth is an act of divine justice. The child does not come by chance to its parents, nation, or circumstance, it is drawn exactly where it must reap the fruits of former sowings. Each life is a classroom prepared by the Spirit's own past deeds. Nothing is random. Not health or sickness, wealth or poverty, joy or sorrow. Each carries the seed of spiritual balance and opportunity for growth. When the body dies, the spirit continues. It takes with it not possessions, not titles, but the vibrations of its will, the fruits of its deeds, and the character it has built. These determine its experiences in the beyond and its next return to earth. Through many lives, man learns, purifies, and ascends, until the spirit becomes luminous and free from the bonds of matter. Those who deny rebirth limit God's justice to one brief life and thereby make him appear partial or unjust. But in the continuity of life, all contradictions dissolve. The child who dies early, the crippled beggar, the unjustly persecuted, all stand within the balance of divine law, each carrying the threads of past sowings now maturing in the eternal circle of life. Death is not an ending but a passage, each birth a new opportunity in the school of divine justice. Chapter 12. The Hidden Justice, Suffering, Inequality, and the Perfect Law. Men look upon the world and see injustice. One born into riches, another into misery, one dies in youth, another in ripe old age, the wicked flourish while the righteous suffer. From this limited view, they declare, there is no justice. Yet they see only a fragment of the tapestry that spans eternity. In the light of the Grail message, suffering is not punishment, it is a purifying process. It is the ripening of seeds once sown in ignorance or arrogance, now returning so that the soul may awaken and be cleansed. The greater the suffering, the deeper the opportunity for liberation, provided man recognizes it rightly. It is never arbitrary, never without meaning. The law cannot err, for it is rooted in divine love and wisdom. Inequality is not injustice, it is the visible expression of diverse spiritual maturity. Each soul stands at a different level of development, having shaped its own path through countless experiences. What seems like privilege may be a test, what appears as misfortune may be grace in disguise. Every life circumstance offers exactly what the spirit needs for balance and ascent. When man suffers and rebels, the pain persists. When he suffers and understands, the pain refines him and opens the gate to peace. For in every experience, the law whispers, learn, recognize, and rise. Suffering ceases to be suffering when it is recognized as a messenger of love disguised in the garment of correction. Chapter 13. The Hand of Forgiveness, Purification through Recognition. Forgiveness, in the light of truth, is not the mere forgetting of wrongs nor indulgent tolerance of evil. True forgiveness arises only from recognition, the recognition of the law that binds all beings together and returns to each exactly what he has sown. When man truly understands the working of karma, he can no longer harbor hatred. For he sees that every pain inflicted upon him has roots deeper than this life, that even his enemy may only be the instrument through which his own past returns to him. Thus he ceases to curse and begins to bless, knowing that divine justice is perfect and unfailing. Forgiveness purifies because it dissolves resentment, and resentment binds the soul to darkness. By releasing the urge for revenge, man aligns with the higher currents of light. He does not excuse wrongdoing, but he entrusts the law to act. In doing so, he becomes free, while the unrepentant wrongdoer remains bound within his own sowings. Through forgiveness, man also opens the channel for grace. Divine light can only reach the heart that is humble and clear. The unforgiving heart is closed, dark, and heavy, but when it releases its bitterness, it rises into peace. The greatest example of divine forgiveness is shown by the Son of God himself, who said, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." This was not weakness but strength, for he stood in full knowledge of the law, seeing beyond the moment into eternity. Forgiveness is the purification of the soul through the light of understanding. It does not deny justice but trusts its perfect unfolding. Chapter 14. Human Justice and Divine Justice, the Courts of Earth and Heaven. Human justice is the shadow of divine justice, limited, temporal, and subject to error. Divine justice is eternal, perfect, and incorruptible. Yet both have their rightful place in creation, and the wise man learns to respect both without confusing them. Human courts judge actions, divine justice judges the will behind them. A man may be declared innocent before men but guilty before the law of life if his intention was impure. Another may be condemned by human law yet stand justified before God if his heart was righteous. This is why the Grail message teaches that nothing remains hidden before the light. The purpose of human justice is to preserve social order, to protect the weak, and to discourage crime. But it can never remove the inner cause of wrongdoing. Only the divine law, working through the unseen web of karma, can reach the depth of the soul and bring true correction. Thus, when human justice fails, divine justice continues unbroken. The man of understanding therefore neither despises the courts of men nor takes the law into his own hands. He acts justly, yet entrusts the final judgment to God. He knows that even when human laws err, the higher law will set all right in due time. For no deed, no thought, no secret intention escapes the living eyes of the Creator's laws. The gavel of men may err, but the scales of heaven never falter. In the coming renewal of the earth, humanity will learn to model its justice upon divine principles, mercy balanced by truth, correction governed by love, and freedom guided by responsibility. Then the courts of earth will once again reflect the harmony of the courts of heaven. Chapter 15. The Awakening of Conscience, the Inner Judge. In the depths of every human being lies an incorruptible witness, the conscience, the voice of the Spirit. It is the living reflection of divine law within man, quietly judging every thought, word, and deed long before the outer judgment of the world. It is through this inner judge that the law of karma first whispers, long before it strikes. But through ages of indulgence and pride, man has silenced this voice. The noise of intellect, ambition, and sensuality has buried the soft guidance of the conscience under layers of reasoning and self-deceit. He calls evil good, and pride virtue, until the still, small voice grows faint. Yet in the new awakening now upon humanity, the conscience begins to stir again. Suffering, loss, and world turmoil are the instruments through which the soul is shaken awake. Every pang of remorse, every quiet discomfort after wrongdoing, every unease in falsehood, these are the stirrings of the inner judge reclaiming its throne. To awaken conscience is to restore the bridge between the spirit and divine will. Once this light within begins to shine, man no longer acts blindly. He recognizes the law in his own breast and walks in reverence. The awakened conscience is man's greatest protection, for it warns before karma must correct. Conscience is the voice of the law within the soul, silent to the deaf, but clear to the humble. To live by conscience is to live truthfully. It demands courage, for it exposes hypocrisy and self-deception. But it also brings deep peace, the peace of harmony with the eternal order. Chapter 16. Do not take the laws into your hands, the wisdom of patience and trust. One of humanity's greatest errors is to attempt to right perceived wrongs through revenge or violence. Yet in doing so, man only multiplies his chains. For every act of vengeance sows new causes, calling forth new effects. Thus the circle of suffering continues without end. The Grail message calls man back to trust in the perfect working of divine law. Every injustice will be balanced in its time, every deceit will ripen and fall. The law cannot be bribed or delayed. To take matters into one's own hands is to declare distrust in God's justice and to burden oneself anew. This does not mean weakness or passivity. The wise man acts when action is right. He speaks truth, defends the weak, stands against evil, but without hatred, without revenge, without transgressing the law of love. He knows that the timing and measure of justice belong to the Creator alone. He works for righteousness but leaves retribution to the law. Patience is not slowness, it is strength held in peace. It is the calm assurance that what must come will come, perfectly, unfailingly, and at the right hour. This patience is the crown of those who trust the light. To wait in faith is not idleness, it is to stand firm in the eternal law, unmoved by the storms of passion. Thus man must not fight evil with evil. In fighting darkness through hatred, he becomes its ally. But when he meets injustice with clarity, calm, and truth, he disarms its power and lifts himself above its reach. Chapter 17. The Path of Renewal, Working Consciously with the Law. Understanding the law is not enough, one must live in harmony with it. The path of renewal begins when man no longer moves against the law unconsciously but begins to cooperate with it knowingly and willingly. Every thought, every decision, every emotion sends out threads into the web of creation, and these threads return. When man recognizes this, he becomes careful in his sowing. He cultivates truth in thought, purity in motive, and love in action. In this conscious cooperation, the soul transforms its fate from burden to blessing. To work with the law is to live responsibly, knowing that no moment is neutral and no deed is lost. The smallest act done in sincerity radiates light and draws light in return. Service, gratitude, and self-control become the tools of creative power. This renewal must begin within. External reforms, social laws, or religious observances cannot replace the inner turning of the will. When man's will aligns with divine will, he becomes a co-worker in the vineyard of creation. Then karma no longer punishes him, it lifts him. The law, once feared, becomes his friend. The awakened spirit no longer fears the law, it walks joyfully within it, as a dancer within the rhythm of eternal harmony. Each day becomes sacred work, an opportunity to sow consciously, to correct what was once distorted, to radiate light instead of darkness. Thus, the soul's renewal unfolds quietly, like dawn after a long night. Chapter 18. The Purified Will, Freedom through Obedience to the Law. True freedom does not come from rebellion but from obedience, not blind submission, but joyful alignment with the living laws of God. The will of man, once clouded by passion and pride, must become purified through understanding and humility before the Creator's order. The purified will is clear, firm, and luminous. It acts not out of self-will but out of recognition of what is right. Such a will no longer struggles against fate but flows with the current of divine intention. It no longer demands, it serves. And in that service lies perfect freedom. This obedience is not slavery. It is liberation from the chaos of human desires and illusions. The will that obeys the law commands creation, for it acts in harmony with the power that sustains the worlds. Thus the words of the Grail message are fulfilled. Only the one who fulfills the will of God stands in the light. The purified will no longer fears karma, for it sows only light. It becomes creative, radiant, and peaceful. Even amidst the turmoil of the world, such a one remains unshaken, for he knows that all things, all laws, all paths lead to the fulfillment of divine justice. Freedom begins where the will bows joyfully before the eternal law. In this obedience, man regains his lost dignity. He becomes once more the image of the Creator, a spirit that acts in love, guided by truth, sustained by justice, and crowned with light. Conclusion. The triumph of justice, the peace of the redeemed soul. At the close of this revelation stands justice, radiant and serene, not as the stern avenger of men's wrongs, but as the living balance of divine order. Every thread of cause has found its return, every seed has borne its harvest. What once seemed chaos, pain, and misfortune, now reveals itself as the hidden architecture of grace. Humanity, long wandering in blindness and rebellion, begins to see that the law was never the enemy of man, it was his guide, his teacher, his mirror. It has followed each soul, not to punish, but to awaken, not to destroy, but to purify and liberate. Every stroke of fate, every disappointment, every joy and sorrow has been an instrument in the hand of the eternal weaver, shaping the soul into the likeness of light. When a man at last bows in understanding, When his will aligns freely with the will of the Creator, then karma ceases to bind. For the law does not bind the righteous, it carries them upward, like a current of light. Justice becomes peace, not the peace of slumber, but the peace of fulfillment. The redeemed soul no longer fears judgment, for judgment has become his joy. It is the music of order, the rhythm of harmony, the song of truth resounding within his being. The world, too, shall find this peace, not through rebellion or reform alone, but through the transformation of the inner man. As each human being awakens to responsibility and sows in love, the nations shall reap unity. As falsehood is uprooted within hearts, the earth itself will shine anew under the light of divine justice. Thus, the triumph of justice is not an external event, it is the inward redemption of the soul, the return of the prodigal to the house of the Father. The day of judgment, feared by many, is but the dawn of recognition. And when the last shadow is lifted, when every tear of repentance has become a pearl of wisdom, then the redeemed soul shall rest in the peace that passes all understanding, the peace of the fulfilled law. The will of God is justice. And justice is peace. For in perfect balance, all souls find rest. Epilogue. The light of the law, the crown of truth upon humanity. From the dust of centuries, from the ruins of temples and the fragments of forgotten faiths, the light of the law rises again, not as a new doctrine, but as the eternal truth made visible. The word once buried under dogma, once twisted by the intellect, now shines in its original purity, as life itself. This light is the crown of humanity, for man was created to be the bearer of truth. When he lives according to the law, he wears the crown of creation. When he rebels, he sinks beneath the weight of his own ignorance. Yet in this age of awakening, this final reckoning and renewal, the veil is lifted. The human spirit, long bowed by guilt and confusion, looks upward once more and recognizes the radiant order that has guided all things since the beginning. The light of the law reveals the true dignity of man, not as a creature of chance, but as a co-worker in the divine weaving. His thoughts, words, and deeds are threads in the eternal fabric of destiny. Every act of love strengthens the web of light, every act of deceit rends it. Thus, the smallest deed holds eternal weight, and the humblest life partakes in cosmic justice. In this revelation, humanity rediscovers the cross illumined, no longer a symbol of suffering, but of victory. The vertical beam represents the will of the Creator descending into creation, the horizontal, the obedience of man aligning with that will. Where the two meet, in the center, the heart, there shines the flame of living truth. This is the true worship: to live in harmony with the law, to act in the light, and to love in the strength of truth. The crown of truth is not given to the learned or the powerful, but to the pure in spirit, those whose hearts are steadfast and whose deeds reflect the light within. For in them, the law is fulfilled, and through them, the world is renewed. Let this book, therefore, be a mirror of remembrance for every seeking soul, a reminder that the laws of God are not distant or abstract, but living, just, and near. Whoever aligns himself with them walks in safety, whoever resists them builds his own prison. Yet mercy ever stands beside justice, and light ever awaits those who turn toward it. As humanity steps into this new dawn, the dawn of understanding, may every soul awaken to the majesty of the divine order and take his rightful place in it. Then shall the prophecy be fulfilled, and the light shall crown the sons of men, and truth shall be their diadem. For justice and love are one, and in their union, God is revealed.